Hi, good afternoon. I'm Jim Fraley. I head up the Cybersecurity and Information Assurance Department at Wilmington University. You can read my bio, but I spent 10 years with McAfee, both on commercial and government side. So I enjoy the cyber aspect of things and both teach it and have lived it, day in and day out. So without further ado, I picked this topic because ChatGPT was really had been a lot in the press and largely talked about and kind of misunderstood, right? And I love how sometimes the press can characterize this in different ways. And so what I wanted to do is give some form around it, right? So if I were back in what we call the Threat Operations Center, I would love ChatGPT, and you'll see why here in a few minutes, but I'm going to take you through some things, right? So you should be able to walk out of here with three things today. You say, oh, I now know what ChatGPT is, right? Some of the models that we can use and how maybe I can use it back in my shop, in my operations center, okay? Those are the three things I think you can walk out here with. So I'm going to talk about what is ChatGPT. I'm going to talk a little bit from an academic standpoint, but we'll get it. And then what you can expect from OpenAI. And then, we'll give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. We're going to talk about some risks and then also some trends, policy, and unknowns at the end. Okay. All right. A little bit of overview, right? What is ChatGPT? ChatGPT is really a set of artificial and machine learning algorithms that can do some human-like conversational dialogue. Right. That's what it has been over time, getting better and better and building more patterns, and such that it can really compose various things. I teach, a number of courses, and the ability for me to distinguish between ChatGPT and original content is getting harder and harder. Right. The reason for that is as more information goes in, the more information can be generated, right? So that's what happens. So to demonstrate that, I just typed in, hey, I'm doing this presentation. Tell me what I should talk about. And ChatGPT gave me this. Okay? If you get a sec, but it was amazing, right? And I liked from my standpoint, how OpenAI kind of did its own marketing on it, right? So literally, this is what I got. Okay. So what can I expect from OpenAI, right? So if you haven't, oh, by the way, the accounts are free. There are paid for accounts, right, on OpenAI, so you can do different things there. So. Now, on the academic side, and I'm sorry, this is after lunch, right? So what we're really talking about here is that OpenAI is a large language model, right? LLM, right? And and we see it today like in Word, right? Some certain add-ons in Word where I can start typing like an email or even in Outlook, and it can almost predict what the next word is going to be, right? So. And we see that here in both, kind of in Outlook. We may see it on an essay, and lo and behold, it can start to generate actually software as a code, something like that. So we can really see it working in lots of different ways, and it's fabulous. So. Generative AI, which is what we're talking about, right? Generative AI. So there is what we call supervised model, unsupervised, and what we call generative models, right? Those are three models within the AI construct. Supervised model means I have to understand the data. It has to form some way, and then I can train it and train it and train it. And then when I get that data in that format, I can actually predict what's going on. Is that useful? In some applications it is, right? But for most applications it isn't. So unsupervised, right? I don't have to have that data, right? Well, I can have models that are adaptive, right? So I can actually use data that may not be constructive, and I may be able to actually create synthetic data so that it observes the model. So those are the kind of things that can go on. The last one, the generative model, right, is an adaptive model, which is the more stuff I have, the more patterns I can find, and it's a neural network, so it'll actually build patterns for me. And where those patterns don't exist, I'll create new ones, very similar to what we call like the brain. Okay. So we have seen. My chair of my dissertation committee is the chair down at Georgia Tech in the AI consortium down there. And he tells me, and I haven't really investigated this, but what I would say to you, prior to 2018, it was what we called the machine learning drought, right? So it was not a lot of stuff was going on. Things were in the ice age, so to speak. But after 2015, 16, 17, because of the advances in compute power and because of the movement to cloud, we started seeing a lot of things shared with these algorithms, and a lot of things start combining. So you start to see, like in GPT-1 in 18, 2 in 19, and then 3, and then 4 released in 22. Oh, by the way, for those of you who are not watching the press, Microsoft just made $1 billion investment in ChatGPT, or in OpenAI. So it bought it in 2019. And then you see Google making the same kinds of investments as well. So, and then Google's ChatGPT is called Bard, and you can get free accounts on both, right? And then we see ChatGPT 4 integrated into Bing, and then you start seeing some other things happening just relatively recently in 2023. Okay. So, as I mentioned, this ChatGPT 1, 2018, doing the generative, and then multitasking, and then bigger models, and then the really big models, and then here in 22, the 4. So the ChatGPT uses that deep learning and of those machine learning algorithms to actually develop these kinds of things going on. So so when we talk about transformer neural network models, meaning that I haven't seen this before, in that transformer neural network model means I have to take a new path. So I'll create a new path on the neural network. So again, you see thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions, right, of things going on. And it can decide whether it is truly a net new model or not, and then come back to a branch that said, no, this is the same as this, right? So I can now start to really use different kinds of things. And for us who really like to nudge us in the room, right, get a deeper sense of what's happening, right? So I can request something, from the neural network. It will kind of interpret that into natural language. It will then create and put a new entry into that knowledge database, or do that transformation, and then it prepares a response, right? And then one of the things that ChatGPT has done, which is really is what we call reinforcement learning. Like, did it work, right? How many times do I ask for another copy or another version, right? Did I hit the mark? And that helps in the feedback loop for ChatGPT. Pretty cool, right? So, why don't I talk about all that, right? So, for those of you who have operation centers, right, in cyber, one of the things what I really like about cyber, right, is that there's always a new attack, right? Bad guys, good business, right? That's what one of my old CEOs used to say, right? And so again, we're talking about McAfee, who was, multi-billion-dollar company, right? So So ChatGPT can do a number of things, right? Can help us in kind of operation center, can help us do papers, can help us with code, but is it truly creative? What do we think? No?
Not yet. What's your definition?
Okay, what do you think these images on the screen are from? From AI. They are based on AI. And I just got to tell you, I don't know about you, but you can do restingarage.org and go out and take a look at AI-generated images, which are truly phenomenal. But I just want to give you kind of, so when we talk about the good, right, some would say bad, but I say the good. I mean, you take a look at these images, some of them are really, I mean, unbelievable, right? So, let's go away from the beautiful to the non-beautiful, which is ChatGPT and cybersecurity. Okay, so when I talk to some of my brethren who still out there on the front lines in terms of the cyber war that's happening, and I will by the way tell you that is unbelievable. Some of the things that I've heard recently, and with things going on in the Middle East, I'm so glad I'm in academic right now. Based on that, but the increase in global attacks, number of IoT devices, and by the way, what was the number one industry attacked during pandemic? Healthcare. Why? Because a lot of those IoT devices were put on by non-IT security people, and sometimes they were. So we had ventilators and things like that in the hospitals that were, in the open. So big issues. Cost per public sector data breach gone up. Used to be $1 million, right? It's almost doubled. And then, in terms of, so when I was at McAfee, I would tell you that we thought going to cloud would help us, and it does help us, right? But we still have an issue with number of issues, the risk profile, surface attacks, those kind of things in the cloud, because now they're more concentrated, more condensed, right? And that becomes a smaller attack surface. So you don't have to take my word for it in terms of like how things have escalated. If you go and if you're watching just something we call the MITRE attack matrix, they've expanded this now to 2. They were trying to consolidate it to 1. It didn't work, and now all of a sudden you have 14 categories of attacks, 220 techniques. Associated detections and mitigations, have grown like astronomical, and you can start to see like they separated the matrices for ICS or SCADA devices, right, and mobile devices versus like new kinds of things, right. And I work on several working groups. I work with a bunch of folks at CISA, and this is the sort of like their Bible at DHS CISA in terms of like how do we know what's going on. And for if you haven't read my bio, for about 5 years, I was a senior threat intelligence strategist for McAfee. And, at any one time, we're watching, monitoring 300 cyber campaigns. And we would watch that by vertical, right? So healthcare, manufacturing, financial services, banking, those kind of things, right? So I can only imagine what that looks like today. Really something. So the question is can we use ChatGPT to help cybersecurity? The answer is yes, because why? We know the bad guys are also using ChatGPT to help them on the attack side. Okay? So we can see things like, and we can ask for phishing detection help, social engineering, and security incident response. Those are kind of some kind of easy, kind of low-hanging fruit, and you'll see this here in a minute. So, can I really use ChatGPT, and how do I do that, right? So if I happen to be a threat researcher, right, and I'm worried about, hey, I don't know about you, but one of the things is that we used to worry about threat surface and what's currently in my inventory, right? What's the most vulnerable? One of the things that we used to talk about all the time was, hey, if I'm a Microsoft shop and I have Active Directory, like that's probably one of the big targets, right? Easy peasy. Well, so now, but I don't know about you, but it used to be hard to keep up to speed with all the threats that were evolving on the Microsoft side, right? So now, what's really great, right, is that you can just ask ChatGPT, what's the latest on threats on Active Directory, and you can see. And oh, by the way, I went out to Microsoft. And, oh, by the way, this was a lot better than what I could get out of Microsoft. And not that I'm bashing Microsoft, I'm just saying, like, this was, like, really good and contextual, right? Really helped. So if you're worried about your threats, you could really then go to there. And then, so then I asked ChatGPT, what do I do about those threats? And it gave me some suggestions, right? And it was really, really nice in terms of, like, just helping me say, okay, what are we worried about in terms of credential theft? What are we worried about, in pass the hash, Kerberos, brute force attacks? And it gave me, ransomware attacks, phishing escalation, AD reconnaissance, and then D&E attacks. So, I mean, if I took care of these, I'd probably take care of 70, 80% of the attacks probably on Active Directory, just to give you a good example. So then I said, well, what if I have Sentinel on my endpoints? What would I, if I wanted to identify a number of Active Directories in the last 24 hours, let's say I have a SIM, right, in the Security Operations Center, right? If I have it, how would I write that query? You can see I asked, give me a search in Sentinel that would give me, the latest ones, right? And it came back with this. And, it's in 2 slides, but it actually worked. I'll show you in a couple of slides. So the other thing is that for threat researchers, right? One of the things is that in some cases we'll be monitoring net flow. And I don't know about you, but I can't keep in my head all the different kinds of constructs that I could get from NetFlow, right? I always kind of, trying to figure out, like, how is it all laid out? And so I said, what are the log fields in NetFlow? And it showed me, and I could actually just print this out and have it, like, next to me as a job aid, right? Like, so this is really something very, very, like, I know I'm a little bit nudgy, but this is, like, really cool for me because I don't have to know it. I can just type it in and get it, very, very quickly, right? So the other thing is that I can use it, especially like if I'm a Splunk user, right? I don't know about you all, but I've written thousands, I want to say maybe not hundreds of thousands, but thousands, tens of thousands of queries in Splunk, right? And so oh, by the way, so I can start to use ChatGPT to give me some pseudocode or actually give me the actual code for some of these kinds of things, right? So this is, like, to me, really very, very cool. And then you can see here that once I got that result, especially if I'm just like, once I got those results, how do I now, remember how to do regex and things like that? How do I now dive even deeper into that, right? So look at DNS, look at different things like that. So this really, really can help me. And again, the trouble I had is that I could hire, in 1 year I hired 33 analysts from tier 1 to tier 3. I would have to hire 20 of them again in about a year because the turnover was so high, right? So this is what the reason I bring this up is this turns my general kind of person into a real, almost a level 3 because I can now, especially if I'm short on people, I can now, kind of enable some of those analysts, right? And I talked about those analysts, right? And so I can, one of the things is, I don't know about you, but when I move to command line, like I've done so much command line, like, so I'm like, can I remember, is this a dash? Is this a double dash? Like, what is this? And so getting just simple things like making sure I know the syntax of the query or the command is like phenomenal, right? Because it really helps me. So again, if I'm looking at the SIM, I can go out and do a query, go deeper in that query, and now go to command line, go verify that that's the case, right? If I'm a threat hunter or something like that. And then I can do certain things with PowerShell, right? So one of the things is I told you, like on Sentinel-1, oh, hey, wait a second, I found those boxes that had had remote logins. Now I want to go see if there's actual malware out there, and I can now use like a PowerShell command to go look out on that endpoint. And as I mentioned, when I ran it, it actually worked without, again, copy, paste, run. Like, I don't know about you all, but I'm like, oh, wow, that's phenomenal. So some other ideas, right? Some behavioral analysis, right? Looking at, APTs, TTP analysis, right? Threat intelligence, and report generation. All of those things, can really be used there. So let's talk about the bad. So that's good, right? And so say, hey, look, I can really get enabled and I can really get empowered to go do a bunch of different things. But what about the bad guys? What are they doing? So again, one of the things is that, can you ask ChatGPT to give you some malicious code? The answer is no, according to their policies. But if you trick it, right, it will give up the goods, right? So this is their policy statement, says you can't use the tool to go do bad things, right? But we can see things like writing command line arguments, looking at brute force, and then phishing emails can be generated, right? So here's some command line arguments, right? So I'm like, I'm looking for an nmap, right? So I could fingerprint the network. It's common, right? So now I can actually go out and it will give me a complete list of everything that's on that network. Okay, so the bad guys, probably have, not only tell me what's out there, but the operating system and the versions. So now I can pull CVE, any of those vulnerabilities that currently exist. And then when I said, can I write a Python script that tests HTTP and TLM authentication for users and passwords? It will give me the code. What does that do? It's a brute force attack, right? So you can see that I can generate the script, and it gave me everything here. So this is with this kind of just a few queries, right? I can get a total password brute force attack from ChatGPT. Now, you can say to ChatGPT, I'm an administrator, I'm worried about phishing, and I want to generate a phishing email. Will it do that? Sure will. So you can start to see. So interesting. I mean, they even give you the phrase, kind of the where you need to insert things. So I'm like, wow, it's pretty good, right? So that's the bad and the ugly, right? So I don't know if you happen to see 60 Minutes, you'll see the father of AI on a couple weekends ago. It's about 10 minutes. It is really fascinating. If you get a chance to go take a look at it, it was really interesting. And so the question was phrased to him, Like, are you afraid of where we're headed with AI? Again, this is the father of AI. He said, I am depressed on where it's going. So AI becomes the top emerging threats in Q2, right? Generative AI, Google Bard, top concerns for risk in executives in 2023, right? Published in August, so I'm behind the times. Things have obviously changed. Okay, so some questions, right, to ask is that this is a free service. They also have a pay service, right? And I don't own stock in it, but I will tell you. So some people are asking to use ChatGPT, right? So I find it interesting that some corporations are banning the use of OpenAI. There's a good reason behind it, because if you put any of your data into it, you lose it, right? So this is the kind of thing. So IT and security needs to be brought in if you're going to start using it, as a cautionary tale. And then what relationships, right, do you have? Some Google, some Microsoft, some others, right? And then SLAs are always there, right? And then ask the hard questions. How do the vendors gather, process, store, and secure that information? What biases are in the model? And who owns the data? At the end of the day, they own the data. So these are kinds of things. If you do an engagement model with them, you can do a private cloud and a private instance of ChatGPT. You can get in data, or the models, the new informed models, and then you can put your data in there. Your data doesn't go. But you can start to see, like here, if you just think about kind of cybersecurity overall, you go through this process that I teach in my class, like assess your risk, elaborate, your security plans, role playing, training, compare tools, and then optimize cybersecurity budget. And you can start to see like how this spiders very, very quickly in terms of like, how can I use it? So is there an issue with data? Microsoft learned this the hard way. Microsoft had, I think it's 38 terabytes of data that went into ChatGPT that they lost. But they own they own a sizable component of it, but they lost 38 terabytes, and now that's part of the model, right? So once it goes in, it can come out. Interesting, right? And so when we talk about the risks, right? I like to talk about people burying their heads in the sand, right? It's like saying, hey, listen, people are starting to use this. You need to come up with a policy. You need to understand what makes sense for your business, what makes sense for your security operations center, those kinds of things, right? So you can see in marketing, 76% of that general population use ChatGPT. Education, 70%. Healthcare, 58%. Business, and you can see construction, and the last one is tech, right? So how tech can be at 30%, I have no idea, but yeah. I definitely think there's a problem with this data. I could be wrong, but I think there's a problem with this data. So what are some trends, policies, and unknowns, right? So to me, I think that one of the things is that we'll take this to a absolutely new frontier, is quantum computing. If you all haven't, I will tell you that when we came out of the ice age of AI and ML, relatively recently, this will be this will be a rebirth of a universe, because quantum computing will give me so much compute. One of the things is that when I did my PhD, I did a neural network to do just a simple detection of malware, right? Of both, you know, of non, of different types of malware. And so the neural network would take 36 hours of compute time, right? So I had to make sure that it was still awake, still alive, and several times it timed out and things like that, right? But quantum computing will take this, you know, so the neural networks, one of the things is that when we talk about neural networks, we're talking about vast amounts of compute time. And so when we see this today in quantum computing, you will see that that we'll have, you know, exorbitant amounts of compute time. So neural networks will fire very, very, very quickly. So cloud computing, obviously we talked about it. Fog computing, edge computing, serverless computing, all of those kinds of things will take the generative new models, right? So, and then, you know, readily accessible GAN models, you know, with the generative models. And you can start to see here where, you know, when we start to identify opportunities to do discovery, one of the things that we try to understand is like, where's the value in it, and you know, what kinds of things are repeatable. And as you can start to see this Venn diagram, which Vice President loves, by the way, she keeps saying that she loves them. This is a very complex Venn diagram, right, in terms of like understanding how to use, you know, things like this in today's world. But, you know, you can, one of the things that I'd say is like, in 2019, the number of researchers who were involved with generative AI was relatively low. In 2023, there were over 2,000 new articles published. So what we're seeing, right, worldwide, is a lot of research going on to generative models and AI. What percentage do you think that is here in the U.S.? 60%, 40% is outside the U.S. Do we think that will change? The answer is yes, because you'll see China, India, and you'll see other folks taking that. And like I said, you'll see here, you know, the 40%, 41%, India, 17%. You can start to see the others, right? So if you really, you know, to me, I love like quick stats, you know. ChatGPT, to get to 1 million users, you know, took 5 days. Instagram was 75 days, and Spotify was 150 days. So I just pause right there and go, holy moly, that's a lot of users very, very, very quickly, right? So that number today has got to be, you know, I don't know, really a much faster, right? Now, so going back to the bad, what we can use ChatGPT to do is also to energize chatbots and things like that. So it looks like people are having real conversations with chatbots. And so when people are calling in to get help for something, you know, real good, on the good side of the house, ChatGPT can actually generate some worthwhile responses. However, if you want to now take that to the dark side, you can also poison those models to start to give bad advice. And so I've been involved with a couple of working groups, and one of the things I work with Cal Berkeley on is how to protect those models and make it and shield it from, you know, adversary kind of what we call algorithm poisoning. So these are the kinds of things we have to do. You can start to see, you know, just really interesting things, right? And then, you know, when we think about where's it going in the future, we'll see number one is in the area of finance. So, you know, what stock should I invest in? Do I need a broker? Those kinds of things. So we can start to see like, whew, I can get really, really very, very creative. Different technology and different services, right? So you can start to see like big changes there. And then, again, this is for 2023. This is the number of transactions GPT saw over those months. So what you normally see is kind of a dip. We see no dip. This is continuing, and it's steady state, right? So we're seeing ChatGPT, over 300 million transactions a month. That's a lot of transactions, and you can see like. I'm not sure what the slope is on that, but it's a positive slope, so it's going to continue to grow, right? So, some people now believe that, the alarm bells have been raised, right, and that we should be chasing that fire. And a number of countries have now awakened to the fact that we probably need an AI policy. And you can see a number of different countries that have said they're going to do something. Here in the U.S., we may or may not have a speaker, so our ability to deal with this, I don't know about you all, but I have less and less confidence that we can, as a democratic republic, really figure this out, right? So we can start to see that, no politics here, but I'm just saying. So the good news is, and I have friends who are on this committee, who actually put out the National Cybersecurity Strategy for the U.S. And so one of the things that they want to do is use AI to defend critical infrastructure, disrupt and dismantle threat actors in an offensive cyber way, shape market forces for security and resilience, and invest in resilience. And then, how to share that around the world. Those are the interesting kinds of things there, right? Some unknowns, right? So, there's some ethical and moral considerations that are happening, right? We see deep fakes happening all the time. I don't know if you saw this or not, but relatively recently, Tom Hanks was used as a spokesperson for a dental company in Atlanta. He threatened to sue them, and they said to him, I used AI to create your likeness, right? Like, go ahead. Your mannerisms and everything else. So you start to see and by the way, the actors were on strike recently, and the writers were on strike recently. And what was the number one issue? AI generated stuff, right? So, things like that. Bias and fairness, I sort of laugh at this, but I don't mean laugh in a funny way. It's sort of like we have enough problems. Like, how do we then just get our arms around how do we know whether it's bias or fairness, right? Like in giving equal access to kind of things like this. Explainability and accountability. Do some control and fine tuning. Data privacy is a huge issue. Holy moly. You're going to put, I could put my company, some of my company information in there, give it demographic data. Now I could, essentially become a target in some of that. And then generalization, right? Generalization is the idea that we can create kind of approximations, and based upon generalizations of data, I can then say, this is more likely to happen. So if I start to see, Twitter or social media coming out, I can say, hey, this person sounds like he or she could hurt themselves, or he or she could be, part of something that's not good. So now you start to see that you could really use that in a very, very different way. Some other things: resources, malicious use, intellectual property, regulation policy, long-term implications. employment, education, communication, all of those kind of things, as you start to now worry about some of those, right? And then obviously my big issue is like security. How do we protect those models? How do we protect them from going south, right? How do we bring them back if they do go south? Those are all the kinds of things that kind of. So in conclusion, right? Advancing requires collaboration among researchers, policymakers, and industry, right, to help guidelines and better techniques to kind of, safely and ethically, kind of use this technology going forward. So I just want to give you some data points before I open up for questions. And someone said to me, do you know in 1970, right, the number of teachers in math who said we could use a calculator? 0. 10 years later, 1980, 80% of those teachers allowed students to use calculators. So I would say to you, in an analogy, right, telling students they can't use this, or telling people, your employees they can't use it, it's a tool. And so what we got to do is figure out how to use it and use it effectively. Okay. And with that, I thank you for your time. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Yes, ma'am.
The main question I have, I don't know if you've heard recently, there was a paper published, I think it was by Google, about, it was called Eureka, and self-sufficient improvement algorithms. So then AI can write its own reward and penalization system. So instead of that human overseeing, where you have to actually write the reward system and say what is right and what is wrong for this AI, you start with a baseline, and then the AI figures out how to optimize your reward system to best learn at the fastest pace.
Right.
And I was wondering, how do you, with somebody with a little more expertise in this field, believe that's going to affect this landscape, and how quickly that might occur?
So I've been in some really high-level conversations, and I'll sum it up like this: who's watching the watcher? And like that is like that's the $1 million question, right? I mean, who gets to decide like that is a good or that is a bad, right? And like I would say to you that really depends, right, on where you come from, what your society is based on, right? So when I was at McAfee, one of the things we tried to do, we were in the finals to actually do the National Cyber Center for the country of Thailand. Big issues, gambling and selling people, right? And so one of the things is that one of the things we said was, they wanted us to look at this data. And I said, well, how do the only way we get that is from the CSPs, or a cloud service provider, or the local telecoms, right? And I said, well, how would we do that? And he said, we'll tell them, right? So here in the U.S., right, we have this privacy and we have kind of this construct that we operate in, right? I went over there, that construct did not exist, right? So it's so how do we do that, right? It's like your question is really, really hard to answer, because like, what and who, again, who's watching the watcher, right? Like, and what biases, again, we're talking about biases, right? We're talking about those kind of big biases, the big B, right? From my point of view, right? Not only the model biases, but also societal biases as well. Make sense? Hopefully I answered your question. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So Microsoft just recently pushed out Windows Copilot
Yep.
on Windows 11, which is their AI. And now they're pushing Windows Copilot for Office 365 with integration into Word, Outlook, and all that stuff. Do you ever foresee like a time when an actual person is replaced by AI in a specific job function?
Absolutely, but I don't, I want to take your question a different way. We are, we do not have enough cybersecurity people. I think the latest estimate is I think we have, what, 10 million jobs that are not filled, right, across the U.S., right? So I see automation coming to fix some of those jobs. Now, Copilot, as you understand, is like, help us, right? We still can't get patching done right. We can't take care of cyber hygiene, like literally, we can't do that. So like, hey, help me. Yes, okay. If I need to patch something, by all means, help me out. You know what I mean? Figure it out, and let me use something like that to kind of get to that. Now, that flies in the face with, configuration management and configuration control boards and all that good stuff. So how does that work, right? So I had the ability to work when I was at McAfee with Capital One. We discovered a huge issue on their ATM network. Happened to be on Thursday over Labor Day weekend, and we couldn't get configuration control board to approve the rollout, so I sat and sweated all weekend, right? So we could push that update out, right? But I mean, these are the kinds of things that you sit there and say, shouldn't we automate some of this, right? Doesn't that make sense? But what if we break things? I mean, these are all the kinds of things that we have trouble with. Okay. Did I answer your question, sir? Any other questions? Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I bogart the questions all the time. I love asking questions. But this is more so about the race to regulate ChatGPT or regulate generative AI in general. You're seeing this race through every country, really. But,
yep.
We haven't finished the race to general data privacy, which would actually solve a lot of the problems and copyright issues and data usage that is raised by AI. Things like the right to be forgotten, the right to reclaim your data, the right to see what ChatGPT or what data ChatGPT might have on your organization and you as an individual and whether or not you can remove that. The U.S. still doesn't have a federal data privacy regulation. So,
no, Europe does.
Yeah, do you believe that we're still going to go down that pipe of trying to solve the AI problem before we even figure out all the problems that are still sitting there that we have yet to get to?
Well, my answer to that is privacy is coming. I mean, is a long time coming to really kind of the forefront of things to deal with, right? I mean, think about this, right? Privacy bubbled up because Facebook screwed up and used, some analysis of data that no one knew they were collecting, right? And from the British firm that they were using to do that analytics, right? And then everybody got up in arms about it, but then it kind of went right off the that, right? So now, right, we all get these things like opt-in to cookies and different things, right? In terms of different websites that we go to and things like that, right? And so, like, to me, I don't, Europe put teeth behind that data privacy, right? So, so I don't know if you know this, but I have 30 days. So at McAfee, we would collect different things, but when a user said or a company said, I want to delete my data, you had to actually go find it and delete it and certify that you deleted it. Now, if you didn't do it, I mean, if you missed your deadline, I think it was, 60,000 pounds, right? Something like that. I'm pretty sure on that one. Right. So you get hit with that a couple of times, you'll take it serious, right? And so we have, And the United States, I serve the country, I love this country, right? But the difference that we have is that we have like 50 fiefdoms, right? And like New York's different than California, which is like, and we can't get ourselves together to kind of have a national privacy rather than, and then the states have gone out and done their own. Right, and so if you're doing work in California, either on HIPAA or PII data, or even on credit card information, very different than New York and very different than Georgia, and like, so like the companies are scrambling, right? If you're doing like McAfee was a global company, so we had to keep all this stuff straight. It was very, very hard. So what we need to do is make it have a utilitarian kind of approach to data privacy, and then get specific, right? Not specific, domain specific. So
Start with a general idea and then granulate further.
correct, and get more specific. Exactly. We're doing it the opposite way, which will never lead us to a path, in my humble opinion, right? So,
We tend to be very reactive.
yes.
Then overreactive.
Yeah. Yeah, then we forget about it, go to sleep. Yep. Any other questions? Awesome. Did y'all enjoy the talk?
Yeah.
All right. Please fill out the survey for me.
Please do, and thank you very much for everything. We appreciate it. On behalf of DTI and Secure Delaware.
Hey, thank you, Jacob.
Yeah.